Now, ever since George Zimmerman was acquitted, there has been a rise in racial tension all across America and an ongoing discussion about the division in America. Now, just yesterday, former President Jimmy Carter was asked a controversial question on that topic at an event in D.C. Let's take a look.
We have a domestic issue receiving international attention. Do you think that we have a form of two states and/or apartheid in the United States?
No, we don't have two states in the United States. We do have separation between red and blue states and a polarization of the constituency brought about, in my opinion, primarily by the massive infusion of money, most of which is spent on negative advertisements that create divisions among the population who has to watch television and also the two parties, and it carries over to Washington. The thing about which I'm most concerned, though, is the growing separation in America between the richest Americans and the poorest Americans, and also a basic negative attitude toward people who are different from us.
All right, here with reaction, Fox News political analyst Juan Williams and Fox News contributor Colonel Alan West is with us. Colonel, demographically, we always break down demographics in elections. You have the black America votes 96% Democratic. You see high-profile cases, O.J. Simpson, more recently the Zimmerman case. Very different reactions along racial lines. Why do you think that is, sir?
Well, first of all, I want to say that when you start talking about the word apartheid, that comes from the Afrikaner language, and that means apartness, and that's a rigid system of segregation based upon race. So I think that the question that was asked was totally, uncalled for when you look at America. But I think that once again, you have a push by certain individuals within the black community to try to keep, this stoking of racial division. And also you have a media that chimes in with the sensationalism of that, and we definitely saw that in the Zimmerman case. We definitely saw that during the O.J. Simpson case or the Rodney King case. But then you have so many other, horrible events, such as what just happened in Chicago over the weekend. We know about the murders there. We have the incident down in Brunswick, Georgia, where two black teenagers, 17 and 15, shot a 13-month-old white baby in the face with a .22 caliber pistol right in front of the mother. But you don't hear any type of media attention. You don't hear any type of leaders in the black community talking about that. So I think it's an instance of cherry-picking the type of issues or the type of stories that people believe will keep this type of separation. And I always go back to this incredible quote by Booker T. Washington in 1911 that talked about this industry of racial divisiveness.
Yeah, what about that, Juan? Electorally, the high-profile cases, you just heard, we hear about some cases, not the Georgia case that Colonel West mentioned. Why is that?
Well, I think that there is an increased level of corrosiveness. I mean, I just thought the whole Zimmerman-Martin trial led to a higher level of distrust between people in this country,
why?
Especially.
Why are the racists seeing the same case so differently?
Well, I saw a poll today. It said, it's not only a division between black and white, Sean, but it said that overwhelmingly among whites there's division. That if you look at white Republicans, it was like 70% of white Republicans sided with the verdict and with Zimmerman, and then among white Democrats, you had almost the opposite number. Only 30% of white Democrats thought it was a just verdict. So, and you look at that, I would say also, it's interesting to me, you were asking Colonel West earlier about Washington. It seems to me that if you look at the Republican Party in Washington over an issue like immigration reform, you see a tremendous divide within the party, and you see the loudest voices, the voices that I think get the most attention and therefore have most access to fundraising, saying the most obnoxious things. They generate all the activity.
What about your big Obama supporter? I mean, the Cambridge police acted stupidly. Trayvon would have looked like my son. I could have been Trayvon 35 years ago. Does he bear any blame in any of this divide, Juan?
Well, the divide I was talking about was among Republicans, so I don't know.
Well, that's not the question I asked.
Obstructed it. Right, but you're asking about which divide, Sean?
Well, I'm asking about the president. When he said, President of the United States gets involved in cases...
You mean the racial divide?
Well,
Is that what you mean?
The president, when he says the Cambridge police acted stupidly, knew nothing about the case. Trayvon would have looked like my son. Is he getting involved?
Well, I would take them apart. I don't think that he understood what had fully taken place in the Gates situation, and I think he spoke, you know, prematurely. I think in the situation involving Trayvon Martin, I think Trayvon Martin, not only was he black, but I think that he, the president later said, you know, he was Trayvon Martin 35 years ago.
But there was no race in this case.
That's not true. Let me just tell you, we have been talking about this case in racial terms from the start, and in fact, the reason it got so much attention was that the police chose not to arrest Zimmerman, and there was no
That's not why. They didn't have the evidence. Colonel, can you name any evidence in the case that had any racial indication? Because there's a mountain of evidence supporting George Zimmerman not being a racist. Colonel West.
Well, first of all, I'll go back to the FBI investigation, which was reported in the Miami Herald down in South Florida, that there was no evidence shown that would prove any animus of racial hatred there with George Zimmerman. But I'd like to go back to the point that we were just talking about with the immigration legislation. You know, a couple of weeks ago, there was an organization, the Black American Leadership Alliance. The head of that organization is Leah Durant. She's a Democrat. She's a progressive. But she realizes the detrimental effect that that immigration law, S744, has passed out of the Senate, would have on the black community. And there you had Tea Party groups with Leah Durant and many other black Democrats. You had libertarians, conservatives, the entire spectrum that came together to talk about the detrimental effect that that legislation would have on the black community, on American workers overall. But you didn't hear anything about that once again in the media. So when you have those instances where we are coming together as Americans on, you know, across the ideological divide, that's not what sells in the media.
But let me ask this, because this is a great point you're bringing up. We don't hear the names of black children killed in Chicago. We don't examine fully as a country. We've never given the attention like we did to the Zimmerman case for the failure in the economy, where half the black kids can't get summer jobs, or the failure of our school system, Juan. We don't talk about that. The civil rights leaders, they're not involved in asking those questions. It seems not to advance whatever agenda they have.
I agree with you on this. I mean, I think it's an outrage, you know. I mean, to me, you've got to start talking about the problems within the community and areas where, in the black and Hispanic community, we can help ourselves, Sean. And I think you start there in terms of, you know, saying, hey, what's wrong with these schools, and why is it that the status quo is defended by these teachers unions? It just drives me nuts. Or you start talking about, you know, okay, so maybe the media doesn't pay attention when a black kid gets shot by another black kid, but my God, it's carnage, and it's going on all the time, and we should speak to it and condemn it.
We don't know the names of any of those kids. Drug use in the black community, acceptance of crime. What about these gangster rappers? Why doesn't someone tell them that they are corrupting our kids? Why don't they scream about it from the highest roof? Yeah, good. That's a good point. I mean, and I think that's because it doesn't fit their agenda. Last word, Colonel West, we'll let you weigh in on this. Well, once again, Booker T. Washington had a three-pronged attack. It was education, entrepreneurship, and self-reliance. And when you look at our inner cities, you look at Detroit, it's an absolute failure. It starts with education. That helps to bring up entrepreneurship, and that creates self-reliance. We're moving toward a dependency society, and we've got to stop it. Guys, thanks so much for being with us.